Okay, now to Devariim chapter 2, verse 2, which is the fifth aliyah for the Torah reading. And the Lord spoke to me, saying, now again, this verse is talking about at that time, 38 years ago, when the people didn't want to go up and then they tried to have this battle with the Amorites anyways. So this is Moses is still talking, but he's talking about something that happened in the past. And the Lord spoke to me, saying, you have circled around this mountain long enough to turn northward. And he commanded the people, saying, you're about to pass through the boundaries of your kinsmen, the children of Esau, who dwell in Seir, and they'll be afraid of you. Be very careful. But that happened 38 years. So for 38 years they went around, just Seir, they just went around. Because that whole thing at Edom what happened right before we were about to enter Israel after the 30 years, because then we asked Edom to let us through, and he didn't let us through. And you shall not provoke them, for I will not give you any of their land, not as much as a footstep, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as an inheritance. So Esau has his own land, right? And it's not really the same Esau from the story of Yaakov's brother, it's his descendants. And is the whole mountain really his whole territory? How big is this territory? Okay, the Torah doesn't go into that. You shall buy food from them with money. Bekesef. Okay, so where did we get the money from? From the Egypt? We had it for 38 years. So obviously there's currency in this time period, right? So we're not like, like a lot of times we think about like our time in the desert and we can't really imagine it, right? Because it's 4,000 years ago. But there was money back then that you may eat and also drink water. You should buy from them from their money that you drink. So it's like, hey man, this is not a barter system. We're going to pay them. We're going to actually pay them money for what it's, we're going to pay them what the market value for what the water and the food's worth. For the Lord your God has blessed you in all your work of your hand. He knows of your walking to this great desert these 40 years that the Lord your God has been with you. You have lacked nothing. But so why did you need food and water if you've lacked nothing? So, okay, right, because all of a sudden, like the Mayim stopped and because Miriam died and the clouds of glory disappeared because I guess they were actually got to where they needed to go, and also because Aaron had died. So all of a sudden they need, but those 30 years we didn't lack anything. Even though, by the way, in the Torah we remember that the people complained that they were lacking food and water, and then they were crying about it. So there was, even though they did, so again, like at those times when they were complaining, they clearly had food and water because the God here says, Moses says that they lacked nothing. But that's not how they felt. So sometimes reality and how you feel are two totally different things. You feel like you really don't have anything. You feel like you're revik, like you're empty, but really you have like malay, like you have a lot of things. So it's a lot of it is like mental perception and your emotional state. So if you really feel depressed and you really feel down, it's like you feel like you have nothing, even though you could really actually have a lot of material things. Okay. And we departed from our kinsmen, the children of Esau, who dwelt in Seir by the way of the plain of Eleph, and for Etzion, Geber, and we turned and passed through the way of the desert of Moab. Because, see, like Moses leaving out the part where Esau didn't let us go through his country, right? And the Lord said to me, do not distress the Moabites, and do not provoke them for war, for I will not give you any of their land. So they get their own land too as an inheritance, because I've given Ar to the children of Lot as an inheritance. So remember Lot? Remember from Breshit? And the Emim dwell there formerly, a great numerous people, as tall statues as Anakim. But so these super tall people, as tall as Anakim, they got kicked out by the people of Moabites were able to defeat them. So were the Anakim really that tall? I mean, if you're tall, does it mean really tall, like physically tall, or does it mean like tall, like sometimes you say, oh, he's a really great man, he's a giant among his peers, but it doesn't really mean he was 7'2", right? Sometimes we use these terms tall, great, and giant. We don't really mean height. But okay, so we don't really know because do we have archaeological digs that show that people were, bigger than like 1.50 meters, 1.60 meters, back then, in the Middle East, like how tall really were people? Most archaeological digs, like the bones are about the size of your normal average person who lives in the Middle East now, somewhere between 150 and 178. Maybe there was a few tall people. Maybe there was like a one or two genetically super tall people, maybe people over 2 meters, right? Over 6 feet tall. But that was probably the exception, not the norm. I think most people were between 150 and 170, like the height we find now. And they're also considered Rephaim as the Nakim, but the Moabites called them Emim. Okay, so I don't know why the Torah is telling us. I don't know why Moses is telling us this. And the Horite family dwelt in Seir. So other people dwelt also in Seir, and the children of Asaph were driving them out. So we see that this whole area of Jordan, what is now Jordan, area, was under constant change of peoples. And they exterminated them from before them. See, we're not the only ones in the Torah who committed atrocities. Like, we're not the only ones who wiped people out. Like, the Asaph also exterminated the whole Horites, whoever they were. They got exterminated. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, look, this is world. In the world, there are people who get exterminated by other people. It happens. I'm not excusing it. It's like, and why is the Torah even recording it? The Torah is supposed to be a book about good things, and the mitzvot are good, and it's all about like believing in God. But no, it's also little droplets of history are inside the Torah as well. Of course, it's not a history book, but it does mention these people. Really, the Horites have been found. There have been found of proof of the Horites, and they were wiped out by the Esau people, by the Edomites. What were they even fighting about? Like, I don't know. And now get up and cross the book of Zered. So we crossed the book of Zered. And the days when we went to Kadesh Barnea until we crossed the brook of Sardea would number 38 days, and until all the generation of the men, 38 years, I'm sorry. Well, from the brook of Zered until they went to the Kadesh Barnea, I don't know how about that is, but it took them 38 years to get there. And all the generation of the men of war expired from the midst of the camp, just as the Lord swore to them. So that whole generation died. And the hand of the Lord was upon them to destroy them from the midst of the camp until they were consumed. And so it was when the men of war finished dying from among the people. Remember, it was only the men that were punished, the 20 to 6-year-olds of that generation. It wasn't the women, and it wasn't people over 60, and it wasn't the people under 20. It was a very select group of people. It was a lot of people. That the Lord spoke to me, saying, today you're crossing the boundary of Moab at Ar. And when you approach opposite the children of Ammon, neither distress them nor provoke them, for I will not give you the land of the children of Ammon as an inheritance, because I've given it to the children of Lot as an inheritance. Oh, right. It is to consider the land of Rephaim. Rephaim dwelled there formerly, and the Amorites called it Zamuzumim. So here we have a little bit history about this whole region. A great numerous people tall as the Anakim, but the Lord exterminated them before them, and they drove them out in their stead, as he did to the children of Asaph who dwell in Seir, when he exterminated the Horites from before him, and he drove out them and dwell in their stead even to this day. Not today, like 2020, but okay. But the Avim who dwell in the open cities, up to Gaza, the Kaphorites who came from Kaphtor, exterminate them and dwell in their stead. So anybody that's in this area that we're going to give you, these people, the Kaphorites, this is the first time I've ever heard of them. Are they like one of the 7 nations? Get up and journey and cross the river Arnon. Behold, I've delivered your hand into your hand Sihon the Amorite, king of Heshbon, and his land. Begin to possess it and provoke him to war. Today I'll begin to put the dread of you and the fear of you upon the nations that are under the entire heaven, and will hear reports of you and shake and be in trepidation because of you. So I sent messengers from the desert of Kedemoth to Sihon and king of Heshbon, and with these words of peace, saying, allow me to pass through your land, and I will go along the highway, and I'll turn neither to the right or to the left. And you shall sell me food for money, and that I may eat, and give me water for money, that I may drink. And I only pass through by my feet, just as the children of Esau who dwelt in Seir, and the Moabites who dwelt in Ar did for me, until I crossed the Jordan to the land which the Lord God has given us. But that's not what happened. Esau didn't let him through his land. That's not what happened. They had to go around Esau. So why is Moses lying? That's not what happened. This verse isn't true. But Sihon, king of Heshbon, did not wish to let us pass. See? And for the Lord your God caused his spirit to be hardened and his heart to be obstinate, in order that he may give him into your hand as this day. So we have free will. So even though like you're going to offer him peace, his heart's going to become hardened. Remember like Pharaoh. But what was Esau's excuse? I didn't say about Esau that his heart became hardened. But we still have an element of free will. Okay, that ends the 5th aliyah.